A piece of tape, not a bomb, not a spy, not a military operation planned by the greatest minds in Washington. A $2 piece of tape. The superpower it helped destroy controlled 1/6 of the entire planet. It had nuclear weapons pointed at every major city in the Western world. It had 15 republics, hundreds of millions of citizens, and a military so large it made grown world leaders lose sleep at night. And somewhere in the middle of its collapse, a piece of tape played a role that nobody talked because it isn't true. Bare human got. Level 1. The state that watched everything. The Soviet Union did not trust anyone. Not its enemies, not its allies, not its own citizens. The KGB had 90,000 full-time agents, millions of informants hidden inside every apartment block, every workplace, every university lecture hall. They read mail before it was delivered. They listened to phone calls. They photographed people through hidden cameras in hotel rooms. The system was built on one principle: total control of information. If the Soviet government controlled what people knew, it controlled what people believed. And if it controlled what people believed, it controlled what people did. For decades, this worked. Citizens who questioned the system disappeared. Journalists who reported the wrong things disappeared. Even within the Communist Party itself, the wrong opinion said to the wrong person could end your career, your freedom. The state was a machine. A massive, terrifying machine that had been running for 70 years without stopping. But every machine has a weakness. And the weakness of the Soviet machine, the thing it had never fully solved in 7 decades of trying, was videotape. Level 2. The problem with moving pictures. The Soviet Union could control newspapers. It owned them all, every single one. Nothing got printed without government approval. The same story, the same angle, the same carefully managed version of reality, delivered to every home in the country every single morning. It could control radio, state-owned, state-operated, state-approved content only. It could even mostly control television. Same system, same ownership, same filtered reality. But in the late 1970s and early 1980s, something arrived that the Soviet information machine had no good answer for: the VCR. Video cassette recorders started appearing across the Soviet Union, mostly through the black market, mostly imported illegally, mostly owned by people with enough money and connections to get their hands on one. And with VCRs came videotapes, Western films, Western news footage, Western music videos, Western reality, unfiltered, unedited, and completely outside the control of any Soviet information ministry. People gathered in apartments, curtains drawn, voices low, to watch tapes that showed a version of the outside world that the Soviet state had spent decades telling them didn't exist. The government tried to ban it, tried to confiscate the machines, tried to prosecute people caught with foreign tapes. But they had a problem they couldn't solve. The tapes kept coming, and they kept getting copied. Level 3. The $2 weapon. Here is where the tape comes in. Copying a videotape in the Soviet Union was not complicated. You needed 2 VCR machines connected together and a small piece of adhesive tape. Blank video cassettes had a small tab on the back. When the tab was in, the cassette could record. When the tab was broken out, it became read-only, a safety feature to protect recordings. But if you covered the broken tab with a small piece of ordinary tape, the cassette could record again. $2. Maybe less. The kind of tape you could find in any home, any office, any school in the world. And with that $2 trick, Soviet citizens were copying forbidden Western tapes by the thousands. One tape would enter a city. It would get copied. Those copies would get copied. Those copies would get copied again. Within weeks, a single foreign film or news broadcast could spread across an entire region with no central distribution, no organization, and no way for the KGB to track or stop it. Think about what that means for a state that ran entirely on controlling information. Every copied tape was a direct attack on the foundation of Soviet power. Not with guns, not with bombs, with moving pictures of a world the government had promised its people didn't exist. Honestly, think about this for a second. If you were a Soviet citizen in 1985, you have been told your entire life that the West is suffering, that capitalism is failing, that Soviet citizens have a better life than anyone in the Western world. And then someone shows you a copied tape of a Western shopping mall. What happens to everything you thought you knew? Because that is exactly what was happening. Across the entire Soviet Union, one $2 piece of tape at a time.
Level 4. The crack in the wall. The Soviet government saw what was happening, and they panicked. Internal KGB reports from the mid-1980s described the spread of foreign videotapes as a serious threat to state security. Not a minor annoyance, a serious threat. Because the tapes weren't just showing Western films, they were showing Western news. Footage of protests, reports on Soviet military failures in Afghanistan, coverage of food shortages that Soviet state media had completely hidden from its own population. Citizens were watching footage of their own government lying to them on tapes that their government had no way to stop. The fear inside the Soviet information apparatus was real and growing because they understood something that took the outside world longer to realize. You cannot hold a system together with lies once the people inside it can see the truth. The tape network was doing something no Western spy agency had managed to do in decades of Cold War operations. It was making ordinary Soviet citizens distrust their own government. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, copy by copy, apartment by apartment, city by city. The belief that held the system together was dissolved, and the government had no answer for a $2 piece of tape. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Historians argue about the causes.
Here is the question I want you to answer in the comments right now. Was the videotape network a heroic act of resistance? Ordinary people risking arrest and imprisonment to spread truth inside a system built entirely on lies? Or was it just curiosity and entertainment that happened to have political consequences? And giving it the label of resistance is giving it more credit than it deserves. Because I think this genuinely divides people, and which side you land on changes how you see every information war happening right now in the world. The KGB had 90,000 agents. It had surveillance systems, informant networks, and 7 decades of experience controlling information at a scale no government had ever attempted before. It could not stop tape. The most sophisticated information control system ever built, defeated by something you can buy at a stationery shop. The Soviet Union, 1/6 of the entire planet, hundreds of millions of people, enough nuclear weapons to end civilization, spent its final years desperately trying to confiscate small plastic cassettes from ordinary citizens. It failed. And in 1991, the whole thing stopped. 70 years of total control ended in part by a $2 piece of tape applied in a living room by someone who just wanted to watch a movie.